Good morning. Let us discuss about today's newspaper, that is 09th December 2015. The first article is related to the WTO deals. Yesterday's newspaper, if you observe that, the government at Nairobi, represented by Nirmala Sitharaman, she has said that they are open to discuss the new issues without any non-binding commitments, or else India is not going to take any binding discussions. It's going to relax these binding discussions. It is going to take up an extended agenda in the form of new issues. So this was opposed by the NGOs. What they say is the government has to ratify any agreement that has been taken up with the WTO. The parliament shall be given such a power. It is to dissuade the government away from the free trade, etc. Here the word used is the special and differential treatment. So the developing countries, they are given some special privileges. Now the yesterday's article also says that the government is also willing to forego the special and differential treatments. It is not going to stress on them. What these SNDTs do is this. The targets which are given, there will be differential timelines for developing and developed world, and also tariffs can be imposed to protect the native industry. So these SNDTs, they are very important to protect the native industry over here. So the Swadeshi, or the people who are promoting for the development of the native industry and opposing the free trade, they don't want to forego our benefits under the WTO. And the next is the United Nations organization. It has demanded for an increased $20.1 billion of aid. Now, few years back it was just 4.7 billion. Now it was increased to 20.1 billion. It is over 10 years period. That shows that how unsafe the world has become. Now you can link this information with the Global Hunger Index and Global Hunger Report. What it says is moving the people away, or else displacement from war and related events is increasing, and this particular war-led migration is the reason for the growing hunger and food insecurity. So most of the expenditure of the UN is going into these operations, and much of the or else only the route or survival option which is available for these victims of the war includes this aid. That's why this shows the reasons we have to expand the necessary options or livelihood chances for these people affected by the war, and the role of the UN also can be explained over here. So from the examination perspective, you can explain this, how the terrorism and also the global politics are leading to a much unsafe world, and you can link that to the food insecurity which is growing with Global Hunger Report of 2015. The next is the Sukhoi 335 deal between Russia and China. Now it is changing the entire geopolitics. Now the Russia is very much cash strapped and it needs money. That is what is its dire need. And on the other hand, the China needs something called as technology. So here it's a win-win situation for both Russia and China, because from the geopolitics view, Russia has seen with regard to Ukraine how US-led Atlantic Alliance has overthrew the elected government. Now with regard to China, the US pivot, Asia pivot, it is one thing which it has to counter. Under the Asia pivot, 60% of total Navy is coming under the Pacific Fleet, so which is much of concern to the China. And in this context, understand it is not just buying of the Sukhoi 35. It is more than that. It is the technology transfer which is going to strengthen the China. And already we know that S-400 air defense system, this technology transfer was done to China. And the next talk is about the Lada class submarines. These are going to be transferred, our technology is going to be transferred to China. The negotiations are going on with regard to this. Now coming to South China Sea, the inclusion of the Sukhoi 35, it provides for easy maneuverability for China because they can take off in on a very short airstrip. So China already have built artificial islands in the South China Sea, and the Sukhoi 35 can be deployed over there for its operations. This is going to make the geopolitics a bit complex. And next is Paris conference. If we come back over here, now the basic countries meeting was held. What it has agreed is it is ready for a legally binding commitment which is verifiable. But however, it wants the developed countries to follow the line of UNFCCC. What the UN Framework Climate Change Conference, what it has talked about, it wanted to the countries not to deviate from the differentiation principle. It means the developed and developing countries shall have different responsibilities. If you take Kyoto Protocol, it is based on this UNFCCC lines, which is based on common but differentiated principles. So under this, Annex 1 countries and non-Annex countries were differentiated. The binding commitments only to the Annex 1 countries. So this particular differentiation kind of approach has to be taken forward. And the second thing which they strongly questioned is about the finances. In last before class I have discussed about the OECD report. What it has said is in 2014 they have spent around $62 billion and $52 billion in 2013. So that's what is the OECD report has talked about. It means on an average $54 billion are spent from the developed countries. And see, this is where there is no transparency. So India says this is all about double accounting. So $2.2 billion is the actual flows. That's what is the Indian government has said. So what these developing countries are demanding is there has to be a transparency in financial transactions regarding the climate change. So along with this, let us see the other articles. What India has to do. Now, India is in a very tight situation. India has no historical responsibility with regard to emissions are concerned. But the developed countries want to take India a greater responsibility in reduction in carbon emissions. Already we have discussed, they want to have a peaking year for India's carbon emissions. And the second thing is, they expect India to contribute finances towards the Global Climate Fund. So these are the things which we are seeing. Now, what the article argues, this part which I like to take for my notes. So these are the suggestions, what India has to do. The first thing is innovate. And next is focus on long-term efficiencies. Now if you observe, already India has, or else developed countries have established the most efficient technology for the energy use. In India, the energy access is limited to crores of people even today. So in this context, efficient technologies are deployed in India. They are going to provide for much benefits towards the carbon emission reduction. So emission reduction shall happen in India, but for that the technological support has to come from the United States of America and other developed countries. Now, if you talk about Kunjat's curve, what this Kunjat's curve says about, so according to Kunjat's curve, initial stages of the development, the carbon emissions will be very high. Once the countries reach to this developmental stage, the carbon emissions are going to come down. So from that perspective, yes. So if more investments, financial sources comes to India, then automatically it will act as a boon towards the emission reduction. So the finances are an important part. So try to see these particular recommendations which have been given towards the Paris conference. Now let us see this Herald issue, National Herald issue. Now there is Associated Journals Limited, where Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, etc. were the shareholders. It was running two newspapers which are now defunct. They are National Herald and Qawami Awaz. This AZL, it was newspapers were shut down, but it has got the loan from the Congress party to the tune of 90 crores. Now, a company was floated called Young India, and it has took over this loan. It means it has paid 90 crores to the Congress party and it took over the assets of AJL. Now the assets of AJL, the Herald House, etc., they are worth of more than 2000 crores. On this it was questioned by Subramanya Swamy. So it is under sub judice. Let us see how it unfolds. But in the meanwhile, it is disrupting the parliament and many other politicking, real politicking is happening around us. Now, Mullaperiyar Dam. So the issue is concerned between the Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Now it has some history too. The Mullaperiyar Dam, it was built across the Periyar River. Now, actually, the Kerala was a rainfall-rich region. So, the Mullaperiyar Dam, it was built to provide the water to the Tamil Nadu. It is before independence. Now, what happened is, the dam was managed and is managed now by the Tamil Nadu. So, Kerala is worried about the safety of the dam. So, Kerala says that tomorrow if dam burst occurs, it is going to cause huge submersion in the downward slopes. So in this context, the Kerala again and again claims that the safety of the dam is under doubt. So the Tamil Nadu wants to retain its rights of use of the water in the Mullaperiyar Dam. The second reason from the Kerala is that Kerala has become now water starved. So it wants to use the dam for its own purpose. So this particular issue went to the sub judice, and Supreme Court also appointed Justice Anand Committee on this issue. The Anand Committee recommended in favor of the Tamil Nadu. Now again, because of the huge downpour over there, the Mullaperiyar Dam is full with water. Now Kerala expects the Tamil Nadu to open the gates and to spread the water outside so that the dam safety cannot be questioned. So this is what is interstate issue. Now coming to the war against the IAS, Islamic State. Now many of the people, if you talk about Donald Trump, they are suggesting for a ground war against the Islamic State by the American forces. But President Obama was made a decision not to take up the ground war, but only support the ground forces who are fighting, that is Syrian rebels and Kurds, through aerial bombing. So, is ground forces a real solution to this issue? So, here the author argues to the line of the President Obama. What he says is, there has to be a sustainable victory. So, in this context, the Islamic State itself is very much involved or wanted the ground forces to be deployed in Syria. Then it acts as a playing into the hands of the Islamic State. Because the Islamic State prophecy, it is based on a fantasy or else writings, medieval writings. That is, there are two regions in Syria, that is Dabiq and Al-Amaq. If a war occurs with Romans and these people at these places in Syria, then that is the end of the world and that will bring in the Islamic supremacy. So in this context, so they are looking for such a war, but however, it is going to increase the incidences of the terror events rather than decreasing it by having a direct war on the things. So more than that, developing support for the anti-terror forces or else giving Muslim enlightened people or people with Islamic literature to take act as a counter force to the growing influence of the IS that will act as better according to my opinion. And next, this article of Raghavan, it is about the intelligence chances or intelligence crisis and what are the complications which they are facing with regard to the new forms of terror that is unfolding. You know that in California recently there was a gun shoot. Now it is a sporadic event which is through individuals that are self-radicalized. According to him, such events, the San Bernardino events, they are very difficult to identify because there is no proper communication flow from outside to inside, which the surveillance system works. So there has to be exchange of information where the surveillance system can catch that, but there is no such information that flew over there. And the second thing is, Like this, sporadic events, countering them becomes very much difficult. And it also exposed the gun culture in United States of America. So if you observe the job of intelligence agencies, if you see Irish Republican Army, their popular statement, every day the government has to be successful. For these extremist radicalized forces, one day they are successful, that is more than sufficient. So in this context, the job of these intelligence agencies, it is becoming more and more complex today. So that is what is the essence of the article. Other than that, he did not talk much about. The governments are trying to do their best, but however they are being outmaneuvered because of the new complexities. The next is crowdfunding. So what is meant by crowdfunding? If you know the startup climate in the United States and the West, it is more and more dependent on the small amounts of the money which was given by the people. So in the long run, when my work increases, if I have to take some more employees, I am looking for this kind of crowdfunding too. So whatever be the case, the crowdfunding means it is a penny that counts. Every person who is trying to give support, a dollar or something towards a new initiative that runs freely or paid, that is what is going to run the startups very soon in India too. On this, Infosys chairman Narayana Murthy's committee was already appointed and it is bound to give its report very soon. So then we can discuss that very elaborately. Now, in India there is a committee on crowdfunding, that is Narayana Murthy's committee, remember, to this extent. And next is, in the budget, you have the differentiation as plan and non-plan expenditure. Because of this, there is a huge coordination challenges in the expenditure. For example, if a dam has to be built on, that is plan expenditure, and non-plan expenditure for its maintenance. And the second thing is how the budget has to coordinate, or budget and planning commission coordination, planning commission and finance ministry coordination, the center and states coordination. Everything is becoming complex because of the classification of plan and non-plan expenditure. In this context, Rangarajan committee was appointed. It has recommended for the abolition of this particular non-plan and plan differentiation. And instead of that, the capital and revenue expenditure classification has to be widely used. So the government is about to make a decision to abandon this. As planning commission is no more existing, the Niti Aayog has come into place. That plan and non-plan expenditure differentiation itself becomes obsolete now. And along with this, the GST, the government is trying to take a hope. And with the 7th Pay Commission, expenditure has increased. And the states or the government may not be able to reach the target fiscal deficit of 3.9%. So in this context, the government is trying for plan B. Now, Hindutva and Dalit question. Now here, from the exam perspective, 2 points were very much important. How come this Dalit question has really come into existence, or the word Dalit has come into existence? If you see Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he said it is because of the Brahminical Hinduism and the Buddhism, the competition between these two religions in the ancient days, that has led to the growth of the Dalits. Now today, the religious conversions from Hinduism to the other religions, which have no caste hierarchies, that has become a kind of controversy. That is one of the reasons why the Hindu brigade, or else I can use the word, the RSS and these people, they wanted to focus on the Dalits. And the second thing is, the Dalits idea got consolidated because of the Britishers' notion of census. When Britishers took the census, so the various social and welfare benefits were given to a section of the people who are called as scheduled castes. Then the census have deepened the idea of Dalits. Now the situation has come to such an extent that the reservations are a major bone of contention between the upper caste and the lower caste. So these reservations are based on this census enumeration. So I mean, the empowerment of the Dalits, to an extent, it was reduced to the reservations, which is very a narrow view. So from that perspective, I will try to see this article for the exam. And the GST bill is unlikely. We know that National Herald issue is going on and the politics are going to further tighten. So this is not going to happen this year or else in this particular session. That is what is the article about. These are the things. So today actually my charger got short circuited. So that's why it got delayed in the morning. I mean, I'll give you the notes within the next 2 or 3 hours. The reason is I have to go to the office to take a new computer and to type the articles. So thank you very much.